Berkely, welcome to this episode of Bitch is a Bad Word, Bitch Sesh. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You have a fascinating story that needs to be told, and I am just going to let you get right into it because you reached out to us, we connected, and I was like, what the hell? This chick's story is upside down and sideways, and it involves law enforcement, which is always kind of a thing. Then and we're like, we really need to have your story told because I think that is an important one. So let's just get into it.
Yeah, I think that part of the importance is so much that we see our law enforcement as this big hero and for what they do, which again, I'm not going to diminish the fact of what they do. The problem is that they end up getting so in their world of being a cop that they start getting in their own echo chamber and they don't start really looking at it from a different perspective. And then that involves the courts. And that's kind of where a big part of my story ends up in. And thankfully some things all kind of worked out, which we'll get to. So I met my ex back in, 2005 through a dating app that, of course, before it was cool. And so we went through that. He didn't have a picture. I respected the fact that, because he did tell me right away that he was a cop and that his privacy was important. So I respected that. So he kind of, there was a lot of him giving a lot of me telling my own story and giving everything like as important as it was, very much the narc vault type of situation. And he started just kind of putting that away in his pocket and started using it. And I think about 3 months in, I ended up moving in with him, as of course everything moved fast as it always does. Once my lease was up and he had a townhouse and he was like, well, you know what, even if you don't feel comfortable moving in strictly with me, you can stay in the other bedroom because it was a 2-bedroom. And I was like, okay. And as a cop, he was paying like next to nothing. So of course, it made sense.
Sure.
So then our relationship just continued. He then, about 6 months in, took me to a restaurant and was like, hey, I just wanted to let you know that, and of course it was the restaurant that we went to on our first date. So he was trying to make it something, I don't know. But he was like, I just wanted to let you know, I know that you knew that I was divorced before, but I think it's important that you know that I've been divorced twice before. And I was like, okay. So now I'm living with this man. Now I feel like even more bamboozled. I'm just like, okay, well, how do I kind of look past that? We were in an argument phase for a couple of days while I try to figure that out. And I was living with him. So what else do you do? We kind of just go, okay, well, that was a bump. We figure it out and we move on. Well, he made it very clear.
But you forgot to look in the spare bedroom's closet for all those extra skeletons.
I know, and all those flags too.
Yeah, those flags are usually under the bed or in the garage.
Somewhere, refrigerator, garage, storage room. I don't know. So he made it very clear that he'd moved pretty fast with his other marriages, and so he was going to take his time with this one. So I was like, okay. So we were together for 2.5 years before we got married. So again, I was like, that's fine. I was young. I was 21 when we met, or freshly turned 22. So I was very young. At any rate, so we get married. It was a whole thing with his mom. His mom was very possessive. He was an only child. His mom had been divorced multiple times. She was an alcoholic. And his dad was basically non-existent. He was around, but he very much separated his both lives. So he went on to have a separate family, which will become apparent to later on in the story. But he had other children, and those children were very much separated from my ex. We'll call him Eric. And so Eric and his mom were very close. He kind of acted more of a parental type of figure. So he paid her bills. Now that he was a cop, he'd make sure she wouldn't get DUIs, that kind of thing. So it was its own thing. But the day after our wedding, she pulled him aside, and because we did a destination wedding, so we were down in Mexico. She pulled him aside and was like, "I need to spend time with you because this is important." So day after our wedding, I had no idea where he was at in the resort, and that again should have been a huge red flag.
Yeah, which we now know are the flying monkeys.
So marriage goes on. We got pregnant with our first. I wanted to wait a little while, but we did get pregnant with her first, and she was then born in 2009. So we got married in April of 2008. By November 2009 was our first child. So we had a little bit of time, but still wasn't quite as much as I wanted. But that was kind of more of a him thing because he had a very strict plan in place because he planned to retire early. So he had to be done with babies very, very quickly. So then I had to be done with babies very, very quickly if I wanted them. Which again, originally he didn't want babies. So I was like, well, this is important to me. And he's like, oh, okay, well, now it's important to me. Again, another red flag. He'd change his script. Like, this is really important
Sure.
to me. Oh, well, that's not important to you. So let me make sure that now I'll switch. So that was something I didn't really realize as much in the early until hindsight. So I get in. Then he ended up getting diagnosed with MS. So I want to say in between one and two. So then our second child was born in August of 2011. The MS is important because then he started getting pain meds. He was diagnosed with a spinal tap, so it's literally there. So he was diagnosed with that and would take regular pain meds for some nerve pain and whatnot. So then by this time, he is in, like, he's kind of moved up to the big boy unit. So he's in a detective role and he got into homicide. Now, homicide at the time was very, very strenuous. So what that meant is their schedule was no longer on a rotating shift. So it wasn't anything consistent. You were kind of on call, and that's what it was. So I didn't really get to have, my family was in a different state. It was just me and my parents. My brother died when I was younger. So it was just them and me. And so I had nobody here. I moved up here for school. I thought that, once I was done with school, I'd move. But then I met my ex, and that's where I ended because I had to, because he was on the department and it was just part of it. So, he homicide was literally looked at as the alpha team. So basically, they could do anything and everything that they wanted, pretty much, and they were on calls. So they were not really working the same kind of hours, so which meant that I was having to stay home. I had to give up my career. I was staying home with the kids, but I could only be friends with his cops' wives. So it was a very strict list of who I could and could not be friends with. And I think looking back on it, it was a lot of, then I couldn't tell anybody what was happening to me. I couldn't have those conversations because everybody was in it. So if you're telling another police wife, they're like, oh yeah, it's kind of like that with me too. And so then nobody's going, oh my gosh, are you serious? This is what is happening.
Mm-hmm. Please go check out our Patreon. It is growing. There is a bad ass community handing over there. Patreon.com/bitch is a bad word. There's free tiers. There's paid for tiers. The paid for tiers give you ad free listening, merch drops, merch discounts. We have a private Discord server where every single member is vetted. We personally look at their license so you can build your bestie gang, rebuild your network, rebuild your net worth over there on Patreon. Patreon.com/bitch is a bad word.
Like I said, homicide, he was in some really, really high profile cases. Actually got interviewed in and on the new, like, Dateline type of situation. He was involved in some very high profile cases that then put us into our last child. She was born in March of 2014. So with his job, that meant that we were having dinners and barbecues and regular get-togethers and social hours with judges and DAs and ADAs and defense attorneys. And I mean, I knew we were married for in total 12 years, but together for almost 15. So that meant that I spent a decade and a half in this world. I was on like the police wives board. I was very active in a lot of the things. I was very active in it. Um, and so then when his opiate addiction did start to get worse, he started stealing my meds. And because along the way, I also got diagnosed with some things. And he started stealing my meds, and I'd block him, I'd hide him, I'd move him, I'd change places of him. And I could not get him to leave my meds alone. And we were on very different ones. I was on oxycodone, he was on hydrocodone. The hydrocodone didn't work for me, so I couldn't ever take his, but he could take whatever, you know. So throughout that, he started having random withdrawals and things like that, and I started to realize how bad and how much he had gotten into it. He came home one day and he looked like I was like half a second away from calling a squad because I thought that he was dying. He had like he had double taken like a muscle relaxer and extra pain meds or whatever, and I mean I was terrified, so I recorded it and I played it for our pain med doctor, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And so then he went through like a Suboxone thing, like the almost rehab, but not rehab, because obviously he had a job and he needed to make
Mm.
sure that he was saving face. And of course, anything that I said or did could potentially ruin that for him. So, um, so his mom then died in June of 2016. And that is kind of like the catalyst domino that started to topple the tower, the house of cards, everything. I started to really realize that his addiction was getting really bad. I found an affair that he was having along the side. And he stopped being any bit of what I had originally known of him. So like that mask fully fell off. And then I started to really see who he was. He started getting even more abusive. Financials were being controlled by him 100%. Because I couldn't go anywhere. I'd have to ask him for money to go and get groceries. And then I would have to get less groceries and I was nursing all of the children. Like I
Mhm.
breastfed all the children, and our son ended up with EOE, it's eosinophilic esophagitis. Anyway, it's a food thing where they can only eat specific foods. So so I was nursing for way longer than most people, for the health of the younger two. And I had to not eat many of times because there wasn't any food, because he would go and spend, because of course it was important for him to be able to eat while he was out. So he would eat whatever and whenever he wanted, of whatever he
Mhm.
wanted. But I was taking care of everything and I couldn't do so. So anyway, I started to really kind of figure out that it was getting really bad. And obviously his mom dying, he didn't want to process any of that. Just got more and more into everything. Well, by August of 2017, I had asked him to move out. I was done. I wanted a divorce. It wasn't healthy for the kids anymore, because at that point I could tell that the kids were seeing us fight more. They were seeing him get aggressive, pushing me and shoving me, and just very aggressive.
Mhm.
And so I didn't want the kids seeing that. Like I never ever wanted the kids to see that. So I asked him to move out. He found some place. Well, at that time, he was now dating like a 20-year-old, so someone half his age. And they were very loud on social media about their relationship. And he was doing some not so great things, buying her alcohol and posting about it, calling her an informant, and I mean, just all kinds of things that weren't ideal. Well, I had made a comment in our wives group or not our wives group. I had made a comment on like a private group that I had thought, because we used fake names everywhere because of his
Mhm.
job. I thought that it kind of gave me some anonymity. Well, one of the other police wives turned my comment into the chief. That then created a cascade of events. So then he was on an IA investigation. So he went through, he was demoted from homicide and moved into what they call the dream unit. So he was burning CDs of officer worn body cam. And he had to go through, they're rehab program or whatever. So I think he spent like 3 months or something like that, not even going to work. I don't know. He wasn't with me. I knew nothing of what he was doing. I had the kids. I was trying to get by because again, he controlled everything. So I was trying to
Right.
get a job with however I could. I was starting at basically nothing all over again because I had a business in the middle, but like I'd spent most of my time all wrapped in this world and I couldn't get back to where I was. So I was struggling and he was not providing me with anything. And so then my mom got diagnosed with cancer somewhere in like the 2016 era. And I we had been told that my mom was dying. So
Mm.
I was spending a whole lot of time back and forth with my hometown, trying to visit and prepare and kind of do all that with my dad. So he had been sober now for like 6 months. He was like, hey, the relationship's over. How about I move back in? We had a large enough house he could move into the basement apartment. And I said, well, that actually would help. Again, I thought that he was really trying to be helpful.
Mm.
Um, so he moved back in. He was taking care of the kids. I, again, was completely done with the relationship. I had met somebody new. I was dating somebody new. The divorce was processing through. It was kind of a giant pain because of finances and everything. So it took longer than it should have. So now we're up to 2019. He met who I'll call Allegra at NA. She was prior military or still in the military. I'm not really sure. She had two children. Um, and he thought that it was going to be the best thing ever because she knew what he was going through. And that was going to be the reason or the way that he was going to stay with this person. She had a checkered past. She had two children from two different marriages as well. And, you know, I won't go into all the things that he told me, but it was also very not so ideal of who I really wanted around my children. But he had a revolving door of women throughout the time that he was in our basement. Um, and I was just like, this is probably just going to be another person. I'm not really going to focus too much on it. And then when our divorce finalized, I don't know if it was her idea or his idea because, like, I think that they're equally as toxic as each other. I'm not really sure, but one of them decided that they would move into a house 6 blocks away from our marital home. So our divorce finalized, and he packed right up and moved 6 blocks down the street. So now he is consistently still in a very, like, right there bubble.
Mhm.
And my boyfriend at the time was not able, like, we are now engaged, so it's weird to call him a boyfriend again, but um, he he
Mhm.
was trying to point out some of the red flags, and I'm like, no, no, I mean, we're just trying to do things so that way they aren't contentious for the kids. Because again,
Mhm.
I put everything aside in the divorce so that, like, I didn't bring up his drug use, I didn't do any of that because I was trying to literally be the bigger person, so that
Yeah.
way. And oh man, how I wish I would have done things different. But again, you can't look at it and go, okay, it's good right now. It's probably not going to be this good forever or until the kids are 19, 20, whatever it is. Um,
Hmm.
and so this is when it all started. He moved out October. We were trying to get kind of the parenting schedule because what we put on paper was just on paper. You know, we were trying to whatever.
Mhm.
Monica is who I'll refer to as the oldest. She had broken her arm and had a cast on, so I had to take her down to get the cast removed. So we're mid-October, and she had already spent at this time a couple of weekends with her father in their new house. And she's like, Mom, I'm not sleeping very well. It's really hard for me to get through school. And I'm like, okay, well, why are you not sleeping well? She's like, well, anytime that I'm at dad's, I'm not able to sleep because her child, so Allegra's child, we'll name her Petra. They put them together in a room, not the two girls, that same family, not them, not they intermixed everybody. And it didn't make sense to me, but I was like, okay. And she's like, well, she's being very physical with me. So what she had explained was that she was ripping her eyelids open, pulling her hair, kicking her, pushing her off the bed, ripping her covers off, turning the light on, screaming in her ear, like awful things to do to a child. Now, they were at the time 9, 7, and 5. And then Allegra's children were 8 and 12 at the time. So we're talking about the 8-year-old. Um, Again, we're going to refer to her as Petra.
Mhm.
She was the one that was sharing the room. And so I notified Eric and I was like, hey, this is what Monica informed me of. And I think that you need to maybe put Monica and Casey in a room together because they're sisters. Like they should be in a room together. And I was met with, it's not your house, it's not your rules. I'll do whatever the hell I want to with my own house. Yeah. I was like, I mean, and at that point I was like, okay, fine. You know what? You're right. I can't tell you how to do things. I'm going to suggest it. This is what she told me. I think it would be better, but sure, you do you. So they came back, and now they had only, I want to say 1 or 2 nights where they had switched now with Petra and Casey, my daughter, the youngest, that was 5, in a room together. That again I was not told about it or anything like that. So then the next time they were with me, I sat down with Monica and I said, hey, how did your night at your father's go? I just kind of want to know maybe if anything happened. Did you have any problems sleeping? Because obviously Monica had told me, and I had started recording a video just so that way, because in my mind it was, if he hears it directly from the child, he won't think it's me trying to tell him how to run his household. So that is
Mm.
how I thought it.
Which is a normal thing, by the way.
You question your sanity a lot.
I know.
uh, so she looked at me and she's like, well, and she's 5. She goes, well, I don't know if I should really tell you about the bad stuff that happened. And I immediately like, what do you mean bad
Mm.
stuff? And my heart sank. And my, again, my fiance, God bless him, because he actually knew how to have this conversation because I didn't. I could not
Mhm.
formulate words. She goes on to then tell me that she was forced into having sex, because that's what people that sleep together are supposed to do, because that's what you do when you sleep together with somebody. And I
Oh my
went,
god, oh my god, oh my god.
okay. So it was like a 20-minute thing where she was talking about everything that had happened. And I just was like, and again, I had no wherewithal because I never thought ever. And I had been very careful because of his line of work. I made sure I did the things. I taught the kids there are safe zones. We label them vagina, penis, breasts,
Mhm.
but we do. You label them very anatomical because in his line of work in CVSA, if a child comes up and says, somebody touched my cupcake or my cookie or somebody
Yeah.
touched my pee or what, any cutesy little name, it doesn't carry weight. And they go, they could have learned that wherever, and it gets dismissed. And so I taught my children. And so, of course, she is literally telling me she touched my vagina.
Mm.
I was forced to do this. I said no, and she was 5.
Oh my god, I
And
can't. I just can't.
I
I just can't.
I just couldn't believe it. So then I did what any parent would do. I sent her off. I told her thank you. I gave her a hug. I gave her a kiss. I said she was so brave and amazing. And I sent her to go play. And I then lost it. I went to my closet. I lost it again. And then I called it in. And I because he was working. So I called it in and I said, hey, my ex is working right now, but I just got notified of this thing that happened. Um, and I need to report it. And they said, okay, since he's on, we'll do this on a private channel. So they notified the officer because I said specifically, do not tell him. I want to be the one to tell him, like, obviously with his job, it's kind of sensitive, whatever. Um, so an officer came into the house. I did know who it was. I played him the video and I said, I'm going to have him come over to listen to this afterwards. So don't put this out in the chatter. But the officer himself, like he was even just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay, well, CBSA will, the child victims and assault unit will reach out to you and then they'll set up next steps. And of course, I had no idea what any of that looked like. But what that looked like is forensic interviews. So I called my ex, I told him to come over. And he came over. We sat in my car because I thought it was like the only like safe place because I didn't want the kids to hear. I didn't want to put
Yeah.
all this adult stuff on the kids. And I played it for him, and I did not know this at the time, but he had went and got his pocket recorder and was recording the whole conversation. And I had played it for him, and he's like, "That's it." And I looked at him, and I'm like, "Are you serious right now? What do you mean that's it?" He's like, "Well, I thought you wanted to talk about like a custody arrangement." Like, and I said, "No.
Oh my God.
How are you not freaking out right now? Because I've had some time to process, and I'm still freaking out."
Right.
And he's like, "Well, this just sounds like they were just playing."
Oh,
I said, "You mean in the middle of the night when she took off your 5-year-old daughter's underwear? How was that playing? How was that anything remotely doctor-esque or playing in any world?" Again, middle of the night, like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, middle of the night.
mm-mm.
He's like, "Well, did you call it in?" I said, "Absolutely." And he's like, "God, I wish you wouldn't have done that. That is going to cause some real problems." And I said, "Well, I really think that you should not tell your significant other right now because this is her child and she's going to want to do whatever she needs to do for her child and try to protect her child. And I don't think that's a good idea right now." And he's like, "Well, she has a right to know." So that turned into its own thing. He left. I'm sure that he shared everything, did exactly what I asked him not to do, and then they
Right.
concocted their own formula of attack, however they wanted to portray it. Because then from then on, I was making a big deal out of nothing. That it was just problematic child sexual behaviors, is what they characterized it at. The kids all went in for forensic interviews. At the time, I suspected that Monica had also been abused the same way, but that's not what she had told me. So I
Sure.
couldn't, and I didn't want to ask her. Like, how do you ask that? So you don't.
Right.
So you just try to adult through it and just know that eventually maybe she'll come out and say some more. So now the kids are in therapy and CPS is investigating. And I'm thinking, okay, CPS is involved. They're going to get to the bottom of this because I had no prior knowledge of how this is going to work. And this is the thing that so many people don't understand is CPS doesn't really actually protect the children. When they are closing a case, they close it as unfounded if they have no proof, if they can't prove what had happened, if they have no way of being able to identify anything that actually had happened, or if the child is now considered safe. Also, that's the
Okay.
other part of it. So that means they were considered safe because they were then with me. CPS had essentially put in a safety plan to remove the children from his house without like line of sight and everything like that. And the kids were in therapy. So I thought that going to therapy meant that then the kids would have time to process what had happened to them. And then, maybe someday, if this woman was still in their lives, that would happen. Well, it was made very clear to the therapist and CPS that that woman was going to stay around. So Allegra was very integrated into the family. I did not know this at the time, but they were already engaged. So their window, so recapping that, their window of dating was about 7 months. So he probably actually proposed around 6 because there is a state law that they can't get married before that. I don't know if maybe even they did get maybe kind of married before that. I don't know. Because then in everything, they got married in June of 2020. And ironically, on my mom's birthday,
Mm.
which again, I think was all,
I'm
part of
sure. Yes, it
part of the
is. It
thing.
is. It is.
So CPS closed the case and listed it as unfounded. And of course, that fed their ammunition that I was making a big deal out of nothing. because, well, CPS closes it as unfounded and whatever. And they made me the problem because I was not willing to put the kids back together right away. I thought that they needed to heal. I thought that they needed to work things out through therapy. I thought that was the process. But
Yeah.
according to CPS, they only have a 3-month window to investigate something. And if they don't have undeniable proof, basically video or physical evidence, which how do you get physical evidence out of a child? Even at any rate, especially when there are 2 girls involved, it's like, I
Yeah.
don't know even how they would even go about proving that. Um, so the case gets closed. I was found in contempt for not sending the children because that's what I did. I refused to send the children because I was trying to protect them.
Sure. You're being the protective parent. You're doing what you know is
The
best.
judge we had was one of the judges we knew. And of
You're like,
course,
hi, friend.
yeah, he found me in contempt because he didn't, obviously, I'm not supposed to not allow the children's father time. And told me, if he's allowed to protect, if he's able to protect citizens of this city, he's able to protect his children.
Okay.
So I knew in that moment that I was probably in trouble in a fight for probably ever.
Yeah.
um, in that point, then you're like, where do I go from here? All I could do is try to get okay with what I couldn't do. So I tried to put in place code words. They all had cell phones, and it did not want my 5-year-old having a cell phone. Like, was
Right.
not ready for
Jesus.
that. But I tried to do everything I possibly could. So 2020 obviously happens, and it's COVID time, and um, I we moved in with my significant other again, now my fiance. We'll call him Simon. So we moved in with Simon, and we decided, he and I collectively, that we wanted to um, move out of town, and so we started looking for places. Well, the parenting plan that we had in place stated that I was supposed to stay in the city, if not the state. Well, he started fighting us on that. Like, you can't leave the city. Which again, it was about control.
Yeah.
Um, he so now we're in 2021. So 2020 went as everybody's 2020 went. So now we're in 2021, and Simon and I were seriously looking at places, and the kids were still going Wednesday nights and every other weekends. And one morning in April, I was essentially accosted at our doorstep when they were dropping off the children. And Allegra was like, so I know you know that the kids were up last night. And here's Petra and Allegra both standing on the doorstep, and demanded that Monica come and confirm to me in front of her, which all part of their plan. They were recording everything in their pockets all the time, against like any of our knowledge. Like, this all came out during court. So
Hmm.
at any rate, she's demanding, like, you tell me and confirm to your mother that nothing happened, everything's fine, because the kids were up in the middle of the night and we all know about it and nothing happened. And I basically gave a very non-answer, because I was like, I don't know what happened.
Hmm.
Monica informed her therapist what had happened that we weren't able to investigate over the course of the time from when they had met all the way up until when Casey had notified us of what had happened. That's when it had stopped for Monica. So she had been abused from the beginning of time that they had met all the way until October, when she had notified me, and then they switched rooms.
Mm.
So she hadn't told anybody right up front. It took her a while, and I said, I'm not going to make Monica tell me that. This isn't a safe environment, and I'm not going to make her do that. And when
Hmm.
she's ready, she can talk about it. So, albeit she actually had therapy scheduled already for that day. So we went to therapy, and sure enough, she gets in there with a therapist, and she reveals that she was forced to be a lookout while Petra went after Jimmy. Now, Jimmy has essentially been the boy, the one that's kind of been aside from everything, not really involved in anything, he's just kind of been where he's been. Petra attempted to have sex with him. Now,
Mm.
recapping ages, we're now at 9. He was 9, and Monica was 11, and Casey was 7. So,
Jesus Christ, these
and
poor
and then
kids.
Petra was 10. So they were only 6 months apart in age. So they're very close in age. Um, but she had attempted to have sex with him. She had attempted oral, made some comments about how small his penis was.
Oh my
A
God.
9-year-old boy, of course, but he also was uncircumcised. And in that, she had torn his foreskin when she was forcibly trying to give him oral.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
thought, so now like I'm hearing all of this in the therapist's office, I'm hearing all of it. And need, mind you, that morning, my son had also told me, hey, mom, it hurts when I pee. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll talk to the doctor. Like I hadn't.
Yeah.
So now I'm in therapist's office and now I'm putting dots together and I'm going, oh my God, what if she like really damaged him? So I took him into the doctor like literally that night. He had tears and rips from his foreskin. So he had to be on some antibiotic cream and stuff. And so now I'm thinking, okay, this is undeniable proof because it had to be called in CPS again. So a new case was opened. Like now this is automatic. This is proof. They
Hmm.
have to be able to say like because there's no other way that anything could have happened to his penis. Like
Sure.
so I'm thinking, okay, this is something. Like I didn't want something else to happen by no
Right.
means, but I'm thinking if anything, this now will mean that my children will be able to be safe. How wrong I was. Again, the CPS comes in. They're like, well, this is really problematic because the kids have all been in therapy. We don't really know what to do. So now we're going to default to the therapist. So now there's all these therapists involved, and the therapists now are putting all of this kind of in place as far as safety plans. And need, mind you, my ex had filed for full custody in this whole part of this whole process prior. So it was out there sitting open, just waiting for court dates. He and Allegra had concocted a plan to get me arrested. So backstory on that, my dog got out of our yard and I got to fix a ticket. I paid it and I sent it in, thought nothing of it. Well, something happened to me paying that ticket. And when here in the city, when you don't pay a ticket, you get a bench warrant. Again, stuff you don't normally know, especially when you're not ever in trouble. Um,
And like
so when
your
you,
dog got out ticket? I mean, come on.
yes.
Jesus Christ.
So, um, when you file a protection order, if somebody has a warrant of any kind, they have to book you. So I get served with this warrant, which was BS totally because I had not talked to this woman since everything came out. I blocked her on everything, all social medias, everything. I blocked her number, never wanted to talk to her. But she had filed a harassment protection order against me and was basically like, essentially was literally just to get me arrested because
No, but that's
I
what
got
they
arrested.
do. They believe me. Like this is like out of the playbook, unfortunately.
Right, because then that would help their case, right? If
Of
mom
course.
is
Oh yeah,
crazy
I've heard
and
it.
she's got
I
this,
promise you,
exactly.
I know. I know.
Exactly, because they concoct the things, right? And then
Of
no matter
course.
how.
Yeah.
So, um, so I was able to bond out because again, it was nothing. It was literally nothing. I basically bonded out, but they had worked it so well that I had like a 30-minute window to bond out before I would have had to stay the night because they
What the
only like
hell?
let you bond out in like a very small window. So I'd gotten
Okay.
served, taken downtown, booked in, and by the time that all that was done, I literally had like no time. So I got it by the hair of my chinny chin chin.
Oh my
Um,
God.
and then we find out that my booking photo, my mugshot, became his contact photo. So it
Oh
all
my
was
God. What
very much
the
a part of his
actual?
plan.
What the
So
fuck?
now
Like, get a life for real.
which means that he was obviously constantly searching me.
Of course,
So at
right?
that
As they
point,
do.
yeah, so and because he has the power to do so, he could do anything. So at that point, Simon and I decided we had to get on finding something and quick. So we found a place, we moved. I got a dash cam because I never wanted to get pulled over and things planted, like all of that. Like all of that
Sure.
stuff was now in my orbit because I was now
Ugh.
terrified. I was terrified of being in my own city. Uh, this man now has, at this point today, he's been on the department for nearly 20 years. Or no, 21 years? 21 years. So he has like seniority and pull and all of
Mhm.
so much, right? So I am terrified. I'm terrified to be in that city. I'm terrified anytime we have to go there. It sucks because I don't
Yeah.
know if he's got some bet with his buddies or whatever.
Sure. I mean, it's a
Um,
legit fear.
and it's hard to consistently live with that. But that's what you do when you have somebody that is a cop. I mean, you're immediately looked at as, oh, you're the problem because the cops are so trustworthy.
Mm.
So now CPS is investigating. We move. I put in the parenting plan that I wanted the therapist to be the one to determine when the kids would be able to go for overnight. So I thought, again, I naively thought that I was doing the absolute most I could protect the children.
Right.
And by doing it however I could. And so I put in the parenting plan, it needs to be, they will decide that. So regardless of whatever the parenting plan said, so it did say that they were supposed to have summers with him once we moved, because now we're hours away and he wasn't going to have his regular whatever visit. So we condensed it all into like the summertime because that was the only thing he was going to be okay with. So, I thought that the therapists were going to be on my side, and along the whole way, like I thought that they had access to the CPS reports. I thought that they did, but apparently, that's all so guarded that it's all subpoenaed and whatnot. So, like, it never did get to those previous therapists. Throughout this litigation, I did have access. I got access to the entire 467 pages of this CPS report. And it was because there were so many and all of the interviews and everything. And I read through everything. And I can tell you, I mean, obviously, I can't go into specifics about it, but I can tell
Mhm.
you that every time my children were interviewed, their story stayed the same. Everything was very specific. I mean, they got some details like, we had watched this one thing like shortly before, whatever, like small little tiny
Sure, but
details that are
like their
normal to
story is
forget.
their story.
Their story was staying consistent every time. But then when you read Allegra's and Petra's, I found out that Casey had actually notified Allegra that she knew prior to me knowing that that had happened. And she did nothing. And
Mm.
then, this whole time, Petra spitting it like it was always my kids. My kids had touched her a certain way, and then that made her think that it was okay, or anything, any number of different ways to put it on my children.
Mm.
Petra now is consistently in and out of like essentially like boys and girls type homes. I don't know necessarily what they're called regularly outside of the country, or in the country, but she's not consistently home. So when this first set of summer had come up, um, Petra wasn't in the house. She was at this like other place. And so I was like, okay, well, we'll see how Christmas goes. And Christmas went fine because again, Petra wasn't there. The problem was
Mhm.
not there.
Right.
Allegra was still a problem just in her aggression because she's a very aggressive woman. But for the most part, the kids are okay.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, the threat's gone. Well, then comes the summer of 2022, and Allegra and Petro are both, back together, like their own little weird bond, and they did these like two sibling reparation sessions with all of the kids, and the kids are like, I don't want to go this whole time. They're telling the therapist this, the therapist then don't listen. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So then they sent the kids. They did. They sent them for the whole summer. And I, again, was beside myself because I'm like, I
Of
don't know
course.
what else I can do. Because if I
Yeah.
hold them back again, I'm going to be found in contempt.
Mhm.
If once you're found once, it's easier to be found again. And so I was just, what do I do? And so my attorney and I are trying to figure it out, and he's like, well, all you can do is just let him go for the summer, see what happens, and hopefully nothing else happens. And it's like, why should my kids continue to be exposed to more and more trauma for anything to be happening, for any action to be taken? But that's just essentially the answer for everybody. Um, and and so they went, and my kids lost weight. They were unhealthy. They came back. God, they were you could tell they had been verbally abused, because they
Mm.
would be in this like hair trigger immediately. Like if something felt, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Let me pick it up. Like, I mean, it was just
Mm.
instant tears, and don't be mad at me, and don't be, and I'm like, what is happening? I mean, my kids were just not them. And
Yeah.
so I refiled again for full custody. Now I've had sole physical custody this whole time, but we have shared legal custody. And so I was trying to get the legal custody, because in my mind I'm thinking, okay, if I can control even that, then that can at least help alleviate him forcing the kids to go to his house. Maybe they can
Hmm.
have visits wherever. Um, and so then he countersued. He countersued for me for contempt and for custody. And so then that is essentially what started the longest legal battle I think I could ever consider over something that I considered a big deal that he didn't.
Yeah.
And I was always the problem in his eyes. So we spent all of 23 in litigation, and in 24, we had done split summers. So by this time, the oldest, Monica, was now working. She is now 15 and did not want to go to her father's. She's like, I want nothing to do with it. I do not want to go. Um, Eric agreed and did not make her go for that summer, 2024. My mom was on hospice now at this point, and I was just like, that's fine. You take the two, and Monica can stay and work and do what she needs to do. But they were coming back every, like, so 2 weeks he'd have them, and then they'd come back for a week. And again, I'm like thinking, okay, they have some time to kind of reset, go back, and everything like that. By the time that August happened of 2024, I could tell when Casey came back that something again had happened. And I actually enlisted Monica to help me out, because I'm like, I know that you guys have more of an understanding of what is happening between the kind of this whole situation. Talk to her, see if there's something else that did happen this summer, because I don't know. I didn't know. And sure enough, she pulled her aside. They went for a walk, because we live on land. So they went for a walk. She talked to him. I have no idea really what they talked about, but I was hoping it was going to be like a sister moment. Casey comes back, and well, I take that back. Monica looks at me and she's like, and so I knew that that meant that something happened. So I waited for Casey to kind of be ready to talk to me. And sure enough, another situation happened. Allegra had forced sleepovers that summer with Petra and Casey together. And I think in two different occasions, Casey woke up with pain and or had blood like the next morning. Was not always 100% sure what had happened. She knew a couple times that her underwear was not how it was when it went on. And so again, there's very little to go on, but you know that something happened.
Yeah.
Again, you
Yeah.
know something's traumatic. And at this point, she's already been traumatized. They all have been traumatized. And it's like, how much do you push this? So at any rate, we reported it. The therapist then thought that I was the one colluding on this on the side, because we had a court date at the very beginning of September, because everything was supposed to come all to a head, right? Everything was all supposed to be done. And we had like a 3-day trial set up, and it was also the contempt and the parenting and all of that was all supposed to be done. Well, then this comes out, and I mean, I couldn't not report it. You can't, and it is illegal in this state to not report it to anybody. It's not just mandated reporters. Everybody is required in this state to report.
As I should be.
Everybody should be, but people don't always. So at any rate, I reported. It got reinvestigated. Um, And the therapist at this point seemed to think that I, like I said, was putting this in because it's so close to the court date. And we had to push the court date, which I did not want. And again, my mom was on hospice, and she was very, very quickly at this point, like kind of circling the drain. And I told my attorney, I was like, if my mom dies during this trial, just know that I might be a mess when we take breaks, but I want to go through with this because I've been waiting for this court date for years now, and I do not want anything else to push it. Lo
Oh.
and behold, this came out, and then at the same time, his attorney, his dad died, like went on hospice only for a couple weeks. My mom apparently wanted to outdo everybody and went on for almost a year. But so his dad died. So this is the attorney. His dad died, and we had to push it. And then, of course, there's this case. So we pushed it. It now was pushed for January of 2025. So mind you, this whole time I'm like, I've got all of this information. How do I process through this? Now, this actually was when I came across your podcast. And because like this whole time I felt like I was crazy constantly because I've listened to time after time after time of the therapist not really getting to the true issue and then being made to feel like I was crazy and then being made to feel that like everybody was telling, like, obviously when I tell the story, people understand from my perspective what it is. But when he tells the story, of course, he's going to tell it from his own perspective. And so those are all cops and their wives, and they're all believing it the way that they're believing it. So I, of course, was the bad guy. And so then you start to really question your own sanity. At least I did. And there were multiple different emails and communications and everything, like, because I was trying to keep this between just the parents because I thought that maybe at the deep of it he would care enough about his kids to really get to the root of it. But along the way, he definitely chose like his father did. This is my new family. I'm going to do everything to follow in with this new family. And so I started putting in all of the messages and comparing them. So Amy says she was, the founder was on your podcast and talked about the tools. So I went in and I started using them, and I then was providing all this information to my attorney. Like, it was so imperative because then now I'm like, okay, when they're coming at it in this way, here's how we can come back at this. So I've got all of this, and it's, you can tell that Allegra was writing these emails and composing and doing all of this stuff behind the scenes. And then you put it together with the CPS report, and you're just like, see, there's no way that the judge can now look at this woman that is a mother that is trying to protect these children and think that she is the problem. And that again was our whole hope. It was everything. I mean, that was the whole parameter of everything that we needed. Um, and And so we get through, we find, and by the way, we got a new judge, and this judge is very young, and he never had any collusions with my ex. So I think that kind of also was my saving grace, because this judge actually seemed to care about my children as opposed to like all the other ones. It felt like they just were like, whatever, it's, he knows what he's doing. And this judge actually cared, and he allowed the CPS report to come in its entirety. So that was something that was trying to be judged, thrown out. But the judge allowed it, so which meant that gave the foundation, essentially, is what it was put in for, was foundation of the problem. And then throughout this, I had made it very clear that his house was not safe because every time anything happened, it was at his house and in his circle whenever they were together or whatever. So he ended up getting a duplex with her. So she has one, her and Petra have one part of the duplex, and then he has the other part of the duplex. They did this before Christmas, so right before the trial began in January of 25. So I sent the kids. I'm like, yeah, we actually got to hang out with our dad. It was kind of nice. I'm like, great. That's how it should be. You should have been, like, from the whole start. That's how how it should have been. He should have been himself,
Right.
but the kids weren't his priority. Um,
Mm.
so at any rate, now the judge forced him to keep the same separate households. The kids are not allowed to go to his house unless he's in the separate house, and that he's not allowed to bring the children around her, around Allegra and Petra, unless he stays and maintains line of sight. Which, think about it: if you go out to eat, how do you stay line of sight if you have to go to the bathroom? You can't. So,
Yeah.
which meant effectively that the children are going and they're in one side of the duplex, and she and them are on the other side of the duplex, and there's not any collusion. So far, that's kind of how it's been. But along the way, I have learned that there are so many judges and attorneys and prosecutors and CPS that don't have any idea of how to process or talk to or deal with anybody that has their own narrative spun and this picture that because they'll do anything to make
Right.
that picture accurate.
Yep.
So for them, it was me being crazy because, all these CPS cases keep getting closed as unfounded, unfounded, unfounded. We get CPS on the stand. They're like, well, unfounded actually means these three different options. It could just mean that the kids are safe with her, which they always were because they would send them
Right.
back to me.
Right.
It didn't mean it didn't
Oh,
happen.
yes. Thanks for saying that. Jesus Christ. Like,
So, we're in this time where victims are so consistently looked at as the one having to prove themselves. Now we're
mhm.
listening to all these Epstein girls, and it, it feels like I am listening to my children 20 years in the future because they're going to have this own story.
Mhm.
Monica has made it very clear that she wants to advocate, and we have started working on a book together, to tell her side of the story from her perspective, and seeing me and everything that I've gone through. And then, because when I was looking for it, there is no resources. There aren't. They are so few and far between, especially sibling situations. But then I found a whole group and community of women that know exactly what is happening. And there is not information. There's people they don't know how to get help. They don't know how to process through it. CPS, again, is not actually on our sides. Um, and there's just not information out there. And so she is almost 16, and this girl is beyond wise for her years. I know that Casey is going to probably follow in her big sister's footsteps, because she also is starting to find her own voice in her own way. But you know I think in all of this, I've
Good job, mama. Just so you know, good job. Being the protective parent is not the easy position to take. And you're doing a great job if no one's told you today.
you question it a lot, I can tell you that, because I definitely feel like I failed more times than I succeeded. But if anything, teaching your kids the best that you can. I mean, because they saw all the abuse, even though I
Mhm.
tried to hide it and shield them as much as I could, they still saw it.
Yeah, they do.
My 16-year-old now is telling me how much she realizes, and she's putting stuff together and stuff from when she, like I thought 5. There's no way she's going to remember all of this
Mm.
long term, because the good portion of the time recently she hasn't had to deal with any of that. But she does. She still remembers.
Yep, they do.
So it's hard. It's long road. God, but we definitely aren't crazy.
No. Oh my God. No, we are not crazy. We are far from crazy.
We're
I
not
just like,
crazy.
what an insane story. Like the most, but it's like, I say this every time. And this is what I like find my mind blows every time I speak to someone. I'm like, oh my God, I've never heard anything like this. And then I hear another story and then another one and then another one and then this. And I'm like, we've got drugs, we've got corrupt cops, we've got like the whole system. It's like, this is real and this is happening in our country. And children, innocent little babies, are the ones that are being destroyed. And other like evil is getting protected. And I'm just like, so that's what I like. Love the show. Let's get fucking loud. Let's talk about it. Let's there is no safety in staying silent. You have to speak out and you have to talk about these situations because you don't know who's in the mic right now. Like, we're in someone's ear right now that could be going through this and feeling like you at once felt that there's no hope. There's no, or you don't know what to fucking do. So
Yeah.
you just don't stop. You just don't stop being the protective parent.
Yeah.
And the protective parents every single time look like the fucking crazy ones for just a minute, And this is
Mhm.
what I always say. I'm like, the kids grow up. Like, what are you fucking doing?
Mhm.
The kids are going to
Mhm.
grow up and know what's up. It's like,
Yeah.
so like you can't manipulate them with like shiny things and don't say anything. Like
They
you
sure
can't.
try.
They do.
Disneyland dads, man, they
Yep.
do.
But the kids remember and the kids know and the kids. So like, I just really just think you're a baddie for taking that very difficult road, believing your children and fighting for them. I mean, it sounds like
Yeah.
the fact that I actually have to congratulate you and say that you're amazing for protecting your kids is like,
I didn't hear it, but that's the thing is like I didn't hear it during the middle of it. I mean, I had my fiance that has been massively supportive through all of this because he could have left. He could have
sure,
seen this giant traffic
shit
shitstorm
show.
and
You're like, are
left.
you sure you want to get on this ride?
And I asked, believe me, I asked him. But aside from him, because he was so in it, he was so
Yeah,
in it that that he was the only really other person. And then, how much you really can burden with your friends, there's a whole lot of
right.
the story that I didn't e- I that my friends never probably will know. And maybe when the book comes out. But I
Well, it's just
because
like, how do you even
you
have that
don't.
conversation? Because then they're
Yeah,
like,
because
well,
how
you
could
just
you do
like,
that? How could you sit there and do that or be there? And that's what I don't want to hear. And I know that for the majority of people, that's not what I'm going to hear, but it's the fact that I heard that in my own head from what he's planted in for so long that I'm almost expecting it. And I think that's part of the problem is that we as the significant others that are wrapped in this, that are the mothers and the protectors, were told so much that sometimes can completely rewrite how we're feeling about ourselves or the
yeah.
situation and know how to come out of that to feel it as knowing that you are doing the right thing. Um, but,
Well,
you know,
I am going to tell you that you did the right thing, and I think you're amazing, and I
thank
think that you did everything you could do and then some. I mean, like, how do you even prepare for a situation like this? And I will say, our listeners are pretty amazing and very supportive, and I think that you're going to find a lot of support when this drops with our bestie gang because they have been through the shit, and everyone's really freaky. Like, it's so amazing. I love our listeners. The bestie gang really does
community
rise
is,
up. They really do like
yes.
come in together and just build that baddie barrier, if you will. And I think you're going to be okay. I think you're going to find some
Yeah.
new besties and I think you're going to find some support. And we'd love to have you back on when your book is out and
Yeah.
we'll help you promote the shit out of that. So
Yeah.
we've got your back.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. The community that you have started building, even in this short time, has definitely made an impact in my life. And so I cannot thank you enough for that.
You're gonna
Because
make
it
me
was,
cry. I try not to
I
cry on these
know, me too.
because
I'm
I always like
sorry.
my makeup is ready, but
Ah, and nobody ugly cry is very pretty.
that makes me feel like I love that. Thank you. Or I love that I'm here for you. I love that it helps me come to work every day.
It made a massive impact in just me knowing that I wasn't crazy. But that was a lot because I did. And so when I found you, and your podcast, it just felt like um, I finally felt seen and heard. And then the group and the community, it just felt like me sharing anything never felt like it was a burden. And that, like I said, is amazing.
Oh, I wish I could give you a hug.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be
But
sorry. I love it. I love you. I'm so glad you found us. I really am. It means honestly, it means the world. It's I can't express it any more than just like it overwhelmed, like it just fuels my fucking fire. Like we are going to go LFG energy all day long. Like I'm really fired up and
Yeah,
I
me
want
too.
you to be like, you're good. You're here. We got you.
Which
And
is again why I wanted to try to see what I could help do in on my side, because the more women that speak up, the more people that speak up, the more
yeah,
that our voices are going to be heard. Because at the end of the day, none of us know what our trauma looks like when we're in the middle of our trauma. And it's not until we're able to look into it and outside of it that we're able to discover and then help other people.
it's so true. When you see it on the other side, you're like, oh my God. Oh my God. You're like, what the fuck was that? No, that was my life. Sorry.
Oh, what was I thinking?
I, I just woke up from a fucking like Scorsese film. No, that
A
was
weird
your actual
dream,
life.
yeah.
So no, yeah. Well, thank you. And I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm going to do it for the besties like you. And so welcome to the bestie gang.
Our voice is all that we have to make an impact at the end of the day. That is what we all have.
It is so true. Well, we're going to keep following you. We're standing with you. We are your support and just keep going. Write that book. Write it.
It's about halfway done at this point. So
Amazing.
we're getting close to the end. I'm hoping by the time that she's ready to graduate that it'll be actually out. So within the next couple of years, that it'll be out, and then she'll be in a phase where she can actually start promoting it too. And then she won't be looked at as this minor. So that's kind of my hope for it. But it's definitely been a challenge because you're doing things like this where you're having to relive a lot of it and help other people by reliving it. Sometimes it's hard to do, but again, that's how we help others, is by letting them know that they're not crazy, because we feel crazy.
Me too. Yeah, there's days
They're
like
so
after
good
the
at making
show.
us feel like that.
They are. You're like, oh my God. But there's like days after I do these shows, like I just like, I need a minute. Like I just need a minute because I've just like relived it every time. But then I'm like, I get fired back up to do it again
Yeah.
because I'm like, no, 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 no. This is my pain has been turned into a purpose and yours too. So we don't stop.
Yeah.
Well, I am incredibly grateful for you coming on um and sharing your journey and your badassery with us. And
Thank you so much for having me.
we're not done. So we will see you very, very, very soon. And yeah, again, just keep on keeping on, mama.
Thanks so much.
Remember, there is no safety in staying silent. If you or your kids are in immediate danger, please use 911, crash on a friend's couch, do whatever you have to do to get safe. And the hotline is here for you. Thehotline.org. Their phone number is 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. Or you can reach out on thehotline.org 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Baddies are standing by to answer your call anonymously. You can text, you can text, or you can reach out to thehotline.org and chat with them. They're there, standing by 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like I said, totally anonymous. We would love to have you join the Bestie Gang on Patreon, patreon.com/bitch is a bad word. We have free memberships. We have paid tiers. You have early access to episodes, ad-free episodes, tea with Lindsay, a Discord server that's totally private where baddies can go in and find their new bestie, rebuild their network, rebuild their net worth. There's an amazing group over there. So please do join them and reach out to us on socials. Send me your texties from your XDs. Send me your story. I'd love to have you share your story on the show, just like we had Berkley. You can send me a phone call or text at 1-800. No, lies. Not a 800 number. You can reach out at 331-BITCHES, and you can find us on our socials. Instagram at Bitches a Bad Word Pod. TikTok and YouTube is at Bitches a Bad Word. We drop our episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. So we will see you next Tuesday. Bye, bestie. Our editor is Kevin Mackler. Our music was composed by Drew Kevorkian. Our art design was created by Eric Johnson and Kevin Roche. Our interns are baddies. Our Discord and our Patreon is run by Kay. And this has been a Caliber Studio production.
Bitches being bad.